Today is the 4th of November 2025. I've not been with you for months because earlier this year, I probably mentioned this earlier in these blogs, I got a bad hip. And before I go any further, if any of you ever have bad hip twinges, like arthritis in the hip, for goodness sake, don't hang about. Don't wait and say, I'll get it done tomorrow, or start asking straight away, no messing, because it only gets worse, and you'll before the actual procedure can happen, you'll be in agony. I was. So be warned. Okay, I had first hip replacement in 2012. And the surgeon then, he said, well, according to the x-ray on your other hip, he said, that'll soon want doing. Anyway, nothing really happened, and the odd twinge now and again, but nothing done. And come this year, it whammed me. May, it just hit me, and it got worse and worse and worse. And eventually, before the operation in 24th of September, I was in a wheelchair. Would you believe it? Well, yeah. The lady, nice lady at the pharmacy, Stephanie, I said I just can't cope with walking anymore, and she lent me a wheelchair for a month. One of these, wheels, I could wheel it around and get it in and out of the car, and I was able to get it in and out of the car, and I was able to go on appointments I'd got, like going to see the oncologist and things like that. I was able to get it out of the car and get myself into the hospital at Angers and things like that. So, but the agony was awful, and the painkillers, I played hell with my doctor, my GP. She said, well, next thing, I can't give you anything else except for morphine. I said, I don't want morphine. She said, well, this is the strongest I can give you. And it wasn't until the surgeon opened it up. I saw him in July, and he said, well, I just can't do anything before, the end of September, because August, nothing happens in August. In France, so everybody goes on holiday, there's nothing available. Anyway, end of September eventually came, and he opened it up, and he had to increase the size of the hole by goodness knows how much. The thing's about, 10 inches long. Previous op was almost a keyhole. He said when I got it opened, he said the top of the femur, the ball, had collapsed. There was nothing there. He said, I don't wonder you're in pain, because it was all the jagged edges poking up. He says I noticed. He says it's the worst I've seen. Anyway, he wired the top of the femur up, and he filled it with glue, and it took him ages. But grand chap, and I really recommend him at Saumur Clinic de la Loire at Saumur. And here we are on the 4th of November, and I'm walking without crutches. And yesterday we went to Chateau Riveau with Ruth. I had a walking stick, but I managed to walk for an hour around the gardens at the chateau, slowly. I've been doing gardening, since I came home, as much as I can from the op, pottering around. And I went to get my hair cut today. You can see it looks really good, doesn't it? It didn't yesterday. So hairdresser said, well, did he go for any physio? I said, no, I couldn't go for physio because I got a chit, I got an order, and I got a prescription for physio, could have it, but I couldn't get there because you can't drive, you see. Driving isn't allowed for the first 4 weeks. So by the time 4 weeks came along, I'd virtually thrown my crutches away. So I was doing the exercises the physio in the hospital told me to do and things like that. Anyway, we're going to finish this taradiddle. Sorry I've not been about for weeks and weeks and months. I've not even felt up to it. Ruth says you've been an awkward bugger at home because, the pain was all the time, even with the painkillers. And sleeping at night, you won't believe it. Purgatory. Anyway, these last 2 weeks, since, the leg is really getting broken in now, then I've been able to sleep like I used to sleep, last year. First time for nearly 6 months. Okay, that's enough of the hip. Right, it's nearly Remembrance Day. Here in Varennes, we have a ceremonies. 11th of November, 8th of May, and of course 14th of July. And the town really puts its back into this. The mayor and the councillors are all there, and they have the local firemen, and they've got representatives of the gendarmes, and they've got not far from us we've got a parachute regiment just up the road, Fontevraud. It's big, in the woods there. It's nobody knows quite how big it is, but they've got their own airstrip and everything there. So some of those come as well, because we're not far away. And it's the band's there. We have a super local band, and they're playing music. And we have the ceremony at the cenotaph, and the flowers and wreaths are laid, and then the kiddies they take bluet, because here you don't have a poppy in France. It's a bluet. It's a little blue flower, cornflower, and the kiddies from school, they are encouraged to go and put a little flower in the pots with the wreaths. It's all so kids appreciate everything that happened, and why it happened, and when it happened, and everything that was done for our future. First World War, Second World War. So, but of course the armistice was 11th and whatever. Now, so here in France it's serious, and most towns have a remembrance parade. And because I'm the president of a local club, then I get an official invite. I'll put it up on here in a minute. Official invite up on this side in a minute. So the mayor sends you an official invite to go, and it's much appreciated. Afterwards, there is a vin d'honneur, which is sparkling wine, in the big salle de fête. The anciens combattants are there, what's left of anybody who fought in the wars that France has fought over the years. Any old soldiers are there, and they are honoured in the big hall. And so there's probably 300 or 400 local residents. I mean, there's a couple of thousand in the town, but it's spread out over a huge area. It's about 6 miles long, and 2 or 3 miles deep is the area the town covers. So, but there's 200 or 300 there, and they are there to commemorate, what it's all about, and that's much appreciated. What I've been hearing recently about towns annulé, French cancelling their. How on earth do they dare cancel a remembrance parade? This has gone on for years now. Okay, I'm 81 now, yeah, and this is a message to everybody who listening to this. You've got to remember. You've got to remember what happened, and why they did it, and who fell, and you have to remember them, because they gave their lives for you. There is nothing more. It's said in famous poems and things, than for someone to lay down their life for you. You can't just ignore it. I know there's these idiots that don't like the flags, and the less educated. All right, let's just go down to it. England. I mean, I know England, because the years that I've gone by, I've been school governor, chairman of governors, everything else, da-da-da. At 81, I've seen it, we've seen it all happen. Ruth and I were educated in grammar schools. I went to Boston Grammar School. I didn't do very well. I didn't pass any exams, but I had a bloody good education. And because I didn't get the exams doesn't mean I wasn't educated. I did eventually get some English language. I got to an O level eventually, because I was working on a newspaper, and I really couldn't really work on a newspaper and not at least have an O level in English, could I? So I did get that eventually. But you must remember, and right, we're going to go back now to 1940s, Harrogate. I was born in Harrogate in 1944. There were good times even then, although rationing, I can remember as a kid, you can't have this, you can't have that. There's not very little to be had because, you start remembering things about 1947 when you're 3, 4, 5 years old. There wasn't much to be had. Grandma, I lived with my grandma in the early 50s in Harrogate, just her and me. She had a lodger. How the hell she existed, I really don't know. She used to drag me off to school. But the 11th of November, that's the 11th hour, that's 11 o'clock, 11th hour, the 11th month, I was standing, I can remember this, I really can't remember this, I can't remember exactly which year, it could have been 49, could have been 50, in Harrogate, between the bus station and the railway station, and the clock chimed. Every blinking thing stopped. I joke you not. Everything stopped, all right? 11 o'clock on the 11th of November, as the clock chimed, it stopped for 2 minutes. Everything stopped. The buses stopped. People got out the buses and stood, took their hats off. There was respect for the past. All right, the end of the Second World War hadn't long gone, but people had lost families and everything. But why isn't the same? I know that to a great extent there is the same respect nowadays in many areas, but you have to put up with so many people who have no respect at all, and you've got to say, well, really, why haven't they? Have they have such low intelligence that they can't? I know a lot of English folks can't read and write now, which is a great shame. Great shame, my golly. But on the 11th, 49:50, Middle Harrogate, 11 o'clock, 11th of November, I was there. And everything came to an absolute halt. And people expected it. They got out the buses. They stood at the side, took their hats off. You didn't walk around the street, You didn't just keep going, oh, I'm off to Sainsbury's or something. You stopped. Everybody stopped and showed respect. Mums with prams. Mums and dads with kiddies holding their hands and stopped. Show respect. Why doesn't it happen now? Surely they could stop for 2 minutes. It happened. Now, must mention this. A few years ago we had a narrowboat and we were going through Rugby, and I think it was a Sainsbury's, but I was on the boat, guarding the boat, and Ruth, I think Alan, our friend Alan, was with us, and she went off shopping at Sainsbury's or Tesco's, and it was 11th of November. And as the clock chimed, the chap said in the came with a loudspeaker, we're having 2 minutes silence and we'd respect you, if you just stand still for 2 minutes, and we're having 2 minutes silence. This would, well, I'm afraid it's 20 years ago. But 20 years ago, I think it was either Tesco's or Sainsbury's, Rugby, announcement, 11 o'clock, 2 minutes silence, please stand still and respect. Today is Remembrance Day. And it wasn't just, it's like here, now in 2025, you don't have Remembrance Day, on a day that's convenient, so you haven't got to go to work or you stop working or something. No, our Remembrance Day will be on the 11th, and it's a holiday. Well, holiday, nobody works. Remembrance Day, it's a day off, all right? But it's a day off to show respect, but there isn't anybody working. I suppose there's buses and things are working, but no, it is basically a public holiday. And so that's how they show and remember the respect here. I do wish it was shown more. Like people could stand still and say, right, 2 minutes. We're just asking you to give up 2 minutes in your year to remember the fallen and the people that gave their lives for you all those years ago. And not just them. There are soldiers today who've given their lives in recent years to try and keep the peace, to try and keep some sort of democracy going. Oh dear, I won't rant on anymore, but 15, I've been going on 15 minutes, I must stop now, 15 minutes, okay. So folks, I'm in favour of poppies and blueies, and remember those people, because when you're older, you can remember things from the past a lot clearer than you can remember what happened this morning. I can tell you, you'll know, when you get older, you realise you can remember things in the past clear as day. So we'll be having our remembrance on the 11th of November here in Varennes. I do hope that wherever you are, you will be able to take part in some form of remembrance service to remember the fallen and the people that gave their lives for you, so that you might have some form of democracy in your life today.